it's important for a manager to set the right expectations and to be very clear about how we're going to work together. Sophie, when are we going to be on a Zoom? When are we going to be on the phone? When are we going to use Teams or Slack or email? Let's be very clear about that. Let's be clear about where you need help. The managers really need to let go of the notion that they have to be on charge of every detail and focus more on what the outcomes are as opposed to the inputs. And so they're going to need to trust more. And when they trust more, based on the two things I said before, like really sharing the purpose of why every piece of work fits into the broader purpose. And when employees understand that, they can also figure out things more creatively, but then having enough process so that they say, okay, on Friday at 3 p.m., let's have a check-in on this and see how we're doing. But don't wait. Come to me if you have a question between now and then. So it's going to be hard for a lot of managers who have been trained to work to daily checklists and little check-ins, so they're going to need to let go a little more. Trust is the absolute foundational ingredient that virtual teams need, and all teams need, but especially remote and virtual teams need more than anything. Because if you don't trust, then you exacerbate the disadvantages of being physically separated. If you don't trust that someone's really doing the work, how are you going to check in with them? And then you exacerbate that by sending a text 5 minutes after you sent an email. If you do trust and your teammates trust you, then it saves time. People invest the discretionary effort. They'll ask for help when they need it. They'll feel supported. So this notion of building trust is a foundational layer. It always has been, but more important than ever before. I think the big theme is that nothing is really that different in how you lead virtually versus in person, but the fundamentals are exacerbated. What good leadership is made even better and more productive in a virtual or hybrid way. Bad leadership is much worse in a virtual or hybrid way. So all it does is exacerbates the underlying trends. Here's a really simple and important thing we tell leaders when they're managing remotely. At the beginning of every meeting, really remind people of that purpose or where we are on the journey and why we're here. Some of the companies that are absolutely thriving in this difficult environment go back to the real fundamentals. And I'm sure you know this, I'm sure you've written about this in many articles. It takes repeating from leaders to have employees really start to not only listen and hear and internalize and then start to live what they say. So that idea of going back to the why every time, because that's what gives people the motivation in between Zoom calls. It's like, okay, yes, now we need to really do this. It's less about necessarily the numbers or that. It's more about trying to satisfy our purpose, I think.